I am very excited about very excited about these technical schools that we have in Ohio. Now, these are schools that allow you to go and do academic learning at the same time where you're learning a skill. And the skill doesn't have to be, you don't have to be using a wrench or something. There's all kinds of skills. You could be in agribusiness, for example. Bob Summers' daughter was in one of these technical schools. She now works for AT&T Wireless. And this goes right hand in hand with the thinking that I've had, which is this. When we can get young people to realize what their passions are, and they can begin to think about what they want to do, that education becomes more viable. One of my daughters, at the current time, has a stock portfolio. She's 12 years old. She's now beginning to realize why math is so important, because she's got to calculate her wins and losses. She hasn't bought any for real yet, but she's going to. And so it's a real-world experience that I wish I'd had when I was 12 years old, you know? So one of the things that we are going to be pushing in our new bill is an ability to integrate within the core education curriculum an ability to start showing our young people different job opportunities. Job may not be the right thing. Maybe it's different areas that might pique their interest. See, I'm convinced that if a kid is good in math, and if a kid spends a day down at Nationwide looking at the fancy lunchroom and the nice cars and the salaries and the suits and the beautiful building, then all of a sudden math becomes more relevant to them. They can see their future. And I think we really need more of that. And when we have that, I believe that's the answer ultimately to improving public education. Connecting kids with their passions, and when you connect a child with their passion, they begin to understand why it is necessary to learn certain things to allow them to get to where they want to their destination. I think it'll work. And so we're going to be promoting that big time in the state. But anyway, so the digital learning, turning kids on to different areas, and by the way, in these technical schools, here's the problem, in my opinion, being an older guy, okay? Here's the problem. When you think about vocational education, it's in people's minds that, well, that's kind of secondary. Well, no, it shouldn't be. But we have to make sure that the academics in these technical schools work. So for the first time, we're going to be measuring the academic efficiency of these technical schools, which we've never done before. Some of them do a good job, and some of them don't. But we don't want the inability of parents to have confidence in the academic capability of those schools to keep them from putting their kids in a technical school where they can really flourish. So anyway, we're going to be measuring that. Developing standards and criteria for teacher and principal evaluations that distinguish between 4 levels of performance: accomplished, proficient, developing, and ineffective. Ensure that a person with 5 years of licensure and teaching experience from a state on a list of approved states. In other words, you taught somewhere else, you come teach here. I can't tell you how excited I am that we're going to have Teach for America here. And Wendy Kopp called me, and I have to return her call, and I need to do that. Okay, and I think Teach for America will be a real shot of adrenaline in a lot of schools. We require teachers in poor-performing schools to take tests in their subject areas, so that if you're going to teach math, you ought to know math. I mean, I think that's a very reasonable thing to do. And we required a chancellor to report on how our College of Educations are doing, which I think is important. Early childhood, well, we got a $70 million grant from the federal government to make sure that we can evaluate and promote early childhood education. My wife's been on me about that for a couple of years, and it's exciting. The purpose of it is to make sure that we have some, I guess that we can do fair and good analysis of the capability of how all these programs are working. Make sure that everybody's getting a fair shot and that these all make sense. Early childhood education is a fantastic thing. We've got the business community, Rich Stoff's folks at the round table are really engaged. All the people in my office, including Ben Hanzig, have been involved in this from beginning, and we came in 5th in the whole country. That means there were 4 people that beat us, but nevertheless, we still got the money, and we came in 5th out of 50. If Ohio State finishes 5th, we'll all be disappointed. But anyway, at least we got the money. And we, of course, maintained funding for the early childhood education programs we already had. Where's next? I really, really hope that you will all give a pat on the back to Stan Heffner. When Stan and I talked, I said, Stan, we've just got to have the kids first. And Stan's taken, I know he's got some heat with people that just don't like any of these reform ideas. As I say, the more reform-oriented he has credibility, and the more reform he is, the less credibility sometimes he has with the education community, unfortunately. But we are now going to move to a system where you're not just going to get some excellent rating. It's going to be a letter grade, an A, B, C, D, or F. We have to know how these schools are doing because parents need to know how they're doing. And you know, we put out this school ranking, and my chief of staff found out that in one of the schools where one of her daughters goes, it was ranked like, 300 or something. She just freaked out. I didn't know that. Parents should know. Transparency matters. And so it's not just transparency, which Stan put out. And I just wish the papers would write about this. I know it's just too difficult or complicated or whatever for them, or boring or whatever. But the point of the matter is, if they would put on the front page, here's how your kid's school is doing compared to all others, I can't think of any story that could be more important than that. And now we're going to get into the business of A, B, C, D, and F, and I'll tell you what else we're going to do. We're going to raise our standards. Now, they did this in other states, and you know what happened? Parents went crazy. Their kid went from an A to a C, the school went from an A to a C, but the academics were more rigorous and more important. Now, I know we live in a culture where every kid gets a trophy regardless of whether they ever kicked the ball in the goal or not. And then the kid goes out and gets a job, and he goes home, he says, Mom, I thought I was A. And the supervisor keeps yelling at me and says I'm not very good. Now, there's a balance here. Having 12-year-olds where I want my kids to play in the basketball game, even if they aren't good enough, I understand, the way mom and dads feel, but I'd rather know. I would rather know how my kids are doing. And I'll tell you, we monitor it online all the time. And when we see weaknesses, we try to bring people around them that can help them through their weaknesses. One of my daughters wasn't doing very, very well in math. She struggled. Now she's an A student in math. I mean, it's fantastic what it's all about. So Stan is going to take this thing on. It's really, really important. David Driscoll up in Boston, he's one of the great reformers in Massachusetts. Has come a long way. I talked to David 3 years ago before I even decided to run about the reforms they put in Massachusetts, and it's made a big difference in Massachusetts. And we intend to undertake the same efforts here. This 3rd grade reading, I'll let Stan explain it to you, but basically we're going to require the development of reading intervention and a monitoring plan for students who are not proficient in reading in grades kindergarten through the 2nd grade, and retaining students that have been on the plan for 2 years and are still not reading at grade level at the end of the 3rd grade. We can't have social promotion for children. I mean, if we had social promotion for me in my golf game, I'd still be shooting 100, okay? Now I got it down to 96. No. But what I'm saying is this. I don't know if you saw 60 Minutes, this whole business where parents are holding their kids back so they can be better in sports. So we would rather hold our kids back so they can be better in sports than fear the fact that we might need to hold our kids back so they can be better in academics. I mean, I'm for doing it. I'd be doing it for my children. If I thought they needed another year, they get another year, okay? We're only helping them. You can't be pushing kids through that can't read at the 2nd or 3rd grade level onto the 4th grade. 4th grade gets to be serious business. Sure, it was hard for me. So anyway, we worked with Stan on that. We were moving forward with a plan, and as I said earlier, we said Stan's point is let's get it out early. Let's just not one day just say, oh, failure, you're being held back. Let's work with these young children.